Hi everyone, Ruth Fazal here again, and wanting to share a little bit more with you as we go into the next little section of Oratorio Terezin. This is a very powerful section for me for many reasons. Just a little bit about the process of writing it. You know, in all of this process, the text was the thing that drove everything. Before I even began to write the music, I knew that I needed to get the text. And so obviously I was really searching the scriptures to find the right things to express what I, in my little knowledge and ignorance in so many ways, could find. And so the next portion is where the choir sings from the Psalms, and we're looking at Psalm 88 and also Psalm 56. And in Psalm 88, it says, "I am shut in so that I cannot escape. My eyes grow dim through sorrow. Every day I call on you, O Lord. I spread out my hands to you. O Lord, why do you cast me off? Why do you hide your face from me?" And I found myself really entering into this feeling. And I have to say that the journey of writing the oratorio, in some ways it took me into a very dark place. And yet I knew that I had to go there. It was part of the journey. And part of the journey of writing the music, I couldn't write from a place, in a sense of, I couldn't write from a place of light. I needed to write from a place of darkness. And so when the psalmist says, every day I called on you, I spread out my hands to you, why do you cast me off? It's important to feel it. And at times it took me into a very difficult place. And sometimes really kind friends would say, you know, come on, Ruth, you almost snap out of it. But I knew that I wasn't to snap out of it. I was to remain in it, and that was part of the journey. And so that was very much my experience in writing the piece. And the Lord, I believe, He used those feelings. I remember somebody once during this time said to me something to the effect of, well, you know, you're going through these things because God needs you to feel it so that you can write the piece. And I remember at the time thinking, well, isn't that a little harsh? But I truly believe it. I truly believe it now, because it's part of the sacrifice, it's part of the journey. And, you know, I was responding, at this point, I was very much responding to the Lord Himself. You have to remember that this wasn't something I set out to do. I didn't set out to write a piece for the Jewish people. All I had prayed was, God, give me your heart. And He showed me that at the center of His heart are His people, Israel, the Jewish people. And so this is very much where I felt I was. And the music even, I don't know if I can really explain it, but the music even expresses this feeling of being shut in and not able to escape. You know, the choir sing and they end on a note, and then another note comes down against it so that it can't go any higher. Maybe you'll be able to hear that as you listen. And then there's these beautiful verses where it says, "You've kept count of my tossings, put my tears in your bottle. Are they not in your record?" And then this declaration, "In God I trust, I am not afraid. What can a mere mortal do to me?" What an expression of faith. And so I suppose in all of the piece, I was finding that there's always this tension between that calling out, feeling that God has somehow deserted us, and yet then at the same time saying, in God I trust, I'm not afraid. So the next poem of the children, this one written by Miroslav Kosek, who was born March the 30th, 1932, and he was deported to Terezin at the age of 10 in 1942, and he died in Auschwitz in 1944. Let me read you this poem. The words are extraordinary. Almost a little humor in them. Terezin is full of beauty. It's in your eyes now clear, and through the street the tramp of many marching feet I hear. In the ghetto at Terezin, it looks that way to me, is a square kilometer of earth cut off from the world that's free. Death, after all, claims everyone. You find it everywhere. It catches up with even those who wear their noses in the air. The whole wide world is ruled with a certain justice, so that perhaps, to sweeten the poor man's pain and woe. What words of the whole sense is that death catches up with even those who wear their noses in the air, that in the end even the proud, even those who think they're above it all, death catches up with them eventually. And so somehow that was helping this 10, 11-year-old child to deal with that reality that everyone's going to die at some point. Amazing. Now, the next chorus, the next thing that the choir, actually the adult choir and the children sing together, I want to tell you a story about this. This is based on Psalm 62 and Psalm 94. In Psalm 62 is God is a refuge for us. Those of low estate are but a breath. Those of high estate are a delusion. In the balance they go up. They are together lighter than a breath. So that's on one hand. And it opens up that way. But then there's this chorus, and it's angry, and it's almost shouting at God. O Lord, you God of vengeance, you God of vengeance, shine forth, rise up, O judge of the earth. Give to the proud what they deserve. O Lord, how long shall the wicked exalt? And so this whole piece begins with a lament. I actually started it out with a violin solo. The violin solo plays the tune of the lament. It goes, how long shall the wicked exalt? And it goes on like that, and it's and so I started it on the violin, and I remember when I wrote it, the violin plays a solo, and then it finishes abruptly, and it's just like you hear the open strings of the violin as though somebody has snatched the instrument away from the violinist. And then this piece starts. How long? How long shall the wicked exalt? It's very strong. There's a sense on which it's like almost a procession that's coming towards you, and it comes closer and closer, it gets stronger and stronger, and then it moves past you. And in the middle of it all, I knew that I was somehow to try to depict the tension that these words, obviously from Scripture, Christians in their churches would be reading these words, and Christians in their churches would be singing hymns. And I'm thinking especially in Europe, I'm thinking of one of the most famous chorales or hymns, our safe stronghold our God is still. It's a sort of sense of God being a fortress, a mighty weapon, a place where we are held safe. So imagine this being sung in churches, in Europe. A safe stronghold, our God is still. And da 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 da. And I wanted to bring this together with this lament. How long, how long shall the wicked exalt? And so I'm thinking, I'm asking God, because you have to remember, and I think I shared last time, I hadn't trained as a composer. I trained as a violinist. I'm going, how do I do that? How do I bring these two things together and create this tension in the music? How do I do it? And so it was an incredible journey with the Lord of putting two things together that didn't really go together and creating this, it's like a clash. And it was a clash. It was a clash between the church and God's people Israel. The church ignoring what was happening right outside their doors, literally. They're singing a safe stronghold, our God is still. And outside, Jews are being taken off, put on the transports, taken off to camps, and killed. How could this be happening? And of course we know that there were those who did help the Jewish people. But I'm talking about the general state of the church. And I think in many ways, in every generation, we find ourselves guilty of these things. And so the Lord is, I believe, pointing this out to us again, right now. So we see that rise in anti-Semitism, and he's calling us to stand with his people. An amazing thing that happened when we were in Czechia. Before we went to Prague, we performed this in a place called Brno, at a very large cathedral. It stood right up on the hill of the city. It was very prominent. And you know, the oratorio opens with the sound of the shofar. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, this is probably the first time that a shofar has been blown in this church. Well, that was one thing. So that's at the beginning of the oratorio. Well, so when this piece comes, probably about 25 minutes into the piece, so we started the piece and we went through the piece, and it was very, very strong. All of that clash, all of that tension I was talking about. And it comes to the end of that song, and the very next song, which I will introduce to you next time, is a song called The Butterfly, which is the song that is a solo for a child's voice. A very delicate and tender-hearted song. And I just remember it was amazing. We came to the end of this God is a refuge for us. How long shall the wicked exalt? The procession has come. It's come closer and closer and closer as the people are crying out to God. And then it disappears. And then the bell on the church tower began to sound. It began to toll. And I thought maybe it was just the clock and it was the time. But no, it went beyond that. And it kept going. And it kept going. And I remember thinking, something's gone wrong. What are we going to do? Because we clearly could not start this next piece, the butterfly, because it was just such a delicate beginning. And if we would have started, and the young boy, Jakey, who was going to sing it, came up to the front, and he stood there and he waited. And we waited. And it just probably went on for about 2 minutes at least. Seemed like forever. And and then it stopped, by which time the attention of all of the audience was held. And I remember thinking, wow, God really wanted to emphasize, of all the times for that bell to toll, right after we had done this piece that has the sound of that chorale, of that hymn, playing against the tension of the lament, how long shall the wicked exalt? So I will never forget that moment. So amazing. And so I think we were all stunned, especially the children in the choir, stunned by it, what had happened. So that's as far as this section goes, and I hope that what I've told you will help you to enter into it even more. Just continue to keep asking the Lord to touch your heart with those things that touch his heart, and very much to put his people on your heart. Bless you all. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoy the music.